doing some current tests of igniters. First is just the test system setup. Got a constant current, constant voltage power supply. I'll be ramping up the constant current. The voltage is set to 30 volts. And the ohm meter on the right is measuring the resistance of the lead. So it will only measure the resistance while I'm hooking it up. After I turn on the power, it will not be measuring resistance anymore. First up, a copperhead igniter, currently measuring about 0.4 ohms of resistance, turning on the power supply. Power supply, no voltage, no current yet. And start ramping up the current. You can see it's in current limiting right now. So the copperhead igniter currently taking 900 milliamps. A full amp, nothing going on with the copperhead. 1.3 amps, 1.2.0. And I'll try to keep it going slowly. And the copperhead, I missed what it was. When I review the video, I'll let you know. Take the current back down. Next up, a tiger tail igniter, measuring currently about 9 ohms, and we're going to start ramping the current up again. Here we go. Now, you can see the shorts along the edges of that tiger tail igniter. Essentially the same as a copperhead. Next up, J-Tek igniter, measuring about 1.2 ohms. Here goes the current. Couldn't even measure it. Next up, first fire igniter, measuring about 1.2 ohms. Start ramping up the current. One and a half amps. Still putting out 2 amps through it, so it's shorted. And we hit the 10 amp limit. Next up, first fire micro igniter. I have 2 samples of this since they varied in resistance. This one measures 9.5 ohms. Here goes the current. And it's and burnt at 1.2 amps. Glowing, and yep, and there it's open. Current is down. Next up, my second sample of a first fire micro igniter. It is measuring 1 ohms, 1.2 ohms. Here comes the current. somewhere around 1 amp it burned through. This is an original Estes igniter, the solar igniters. Probably a collector's item at the moment, but its resistance measuring right about 1 ohms, and here comes the current. About 1.5 amps, and it's still holding 1.5 amps, glowing that bridge wire. 2 amps, 3 amps. Oh, and there it went. Am I touching my wire again? My wire's touching the bowl, and it welded to the bowl. See if we can keep that from touching the bowl. And we got no more. Just a little demonstration on what we did with Estes igniters when I was a child. You could take the single wire and you take a pen and you wrap it around the point of a pen to make this little heating element. And missed it. There we go. Had finer point pens back when I was a kid, really. But you can make that little heating element, little curl, and we'll see how that does. It's just a wire. That heating coil, old style Estes igniter, it's how when I was a kid I could keep using Estes igniters over and over. Basically no current. That little heating coil. Now we're going to start ramping up the current. 1 amp, 2 amp, 3 amps, 4, 5, it's smoking. As I started to tear down and clean up, I realized that I have these First Fire micro igniters, and they have this nice wire on them. So if I were to take this nice wire off and like split the insulation here, you need some strong fingernails to do something like that. There you go. Just split that old insulation right there and wrap it around a pen tip. Come on, get around. Just make a single loop of it. Come on. Good enough. So, make a single loop.